So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah! What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, we have some breaking Detroit Lions news today, as the Detroit Lions are sending former number 3 overall pick Jeff Okudah to the Atlanta Falcons in exchange for a 2023 fifth round selection. Now, Jeff Okudah had some ups and downs as a Detroit Lion, right? His rookie season didn't go as well as a lot of people were expecting. And then when Matt Patricia got moved on from and the new regime came in, Jeff Okudah unfortunately tore his Achilles in really what would have been his true rookie season under an actual competent defensive coordinator. So he only ended up playing one game, but did look fairly promising in that game. This past season was really Jeff Okudah's first full season as an NFL player and really was the second half of his rookie season as far as playing experience. Now, I thought Jeff Okudah played very well for a large majority of last season. There was a lot of games where he looked really good versus the Falcons or versus the Eagles, versus the Commanders, versus the Vikings the first time around. And really, very early in the season, the first 8 to 9 weeks, he looked like a true number 1, really, really good cornerback. However, later in the season, his flaws did end up getting exposed. His lack of deep speed did end up becoming a problem. His lack of ability to contest the ball in the air deep down the field was an issue for the Detroit Lions secondary. And Jeff Okudah, despite not having a horrible statistical season, in about 15 games, gave up just over 600 yards and only a single touchdown while having a pick 6 to his name. He didn't have an awful season, didn't have a horrible season, but definitely left room for improvement and definitely left some room for the Detroit Lions to get better at the secondary position. Now, I personally did not believe the Detroit Lions were quite ready to move on from Jeff Okudah just yet. It seemed like they were very high on him as a player, very high on him as a person. It comes out all the time that Jeff Okudah works incredibly hard, that he's a good teammate, that he's a really good listener, that he improves, it takes everything to heart and growed a lot as a player over the last couple of seasons. However, with the recent signings of Cam Sutton and Emmanuel Mosley, with the breakout season really of Jerry Jacobs at the cornerback position, there's not going to necessarily be a lot of room for Jeff Okudah. So moving on from him and getting some form of draft capital in return does make a level of sense for the Detroit Lions. Cam Sutton will likely be your boundary cornerback 1. Emmanuel Mosley will likely be your boundary cornerback 2. Jerry Jacobs is either going to be a slot cornerback or maybe Cam Sutton will move inside and Jerry Jacobs will continue to play on the boundary. And it's not unlikely that the Detroit Lions will address the cornerback position in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft, leaving Jeff Okudah likely as the cornerback 5 at best. And for a player that really hasn't had a whole lot of time to develop in the NFL, a player that still has some glaring flaws, and a player that is on the last year of his contract and really not set to be a starter next year, I think this trade makes a lot of sense for the Detroit Lions. Now, a 5th round pick, I feel like is fairly appropriate value for the former number 3 overall selection. Jeff Okudah, I think, has a lot of upside. I think can be a really good role player in the Atlanta Falcons defense. And I think for a team like Atlanta that is going to need some secondary help, pairing him with another member of that 2021 class in A.J. Terrell, kind of pairing them together, I think they can be a pretty good young cornerback duo. Hopefully Jeff Okudah can develop. He was one of my favorite players on the Lions. He's a player that I rooted for all the time, a player that I defended, a player that I thought would develop into something really good in Detroit. However, it seems like the Lions disagreed, and they are dishing him out to the Falcons for a 2023 fifth round selection. Now, I'm not exactly sure what number selection it is. However, I do know the Atlanta Falcons are selecting 8th overall in the NFL draft. So if it is their 8th pick in the 5th round, it is a very high 5th round pick, giving them 2 picks in the 5th round, one at the very beginning and one roughly in the center of that 5th round. And with Brad Holmes' drafting history in recent years, I think that can turn into a very good player. So, with all that being said, though, that's all I got for you guys right now. Jeff Okudah is no longer a Detroit Lion. He is an Atlanta Falcon, but the Lions are receiving a 5th-round pick in return. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about this trade. Who do you think won it in terms of value? And of course, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you go down below, subscribe, and like the video, and we'll come back out with some more Detroit Lions content in just a little bit. But until then, thank you so much for watching. And until then, go Lions.